This program contains graphic images and may be offensive or disturbing to some viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. Imagine waking up before dawn in a frigid room, the only source of light filtering through grime-coated windows. Your room, if it can be called that, is a dark, dank chamber, shared with your family and possibly several other families. The floor is a treacherous minefield of rotting waste, refuse and vermin, the air thick with the stench of decay and disease. You stumble out of bed, careful not to step on any of the waste. You run the risk of being clubbed to death by a fellow shopper, stabbed by a pickpocket, or trampled by the mounted soldiers who ride roughshod over the populace. If you are unfortunate enough to offend someone, you might find yourself at the receiving end of a beating. A knife in the ribs, or a blunt instrument, applied with great enthusiasm to sensitive areas. When King Henry VIII hosted banquets, he made sure that the guests washed their hands before partaking of the feast. Perhaps you think to yourself, why not open the window to let in some fresh air? Well, don't bother. The air you breathe is as noxious as the waste that litters your floors. London, one of the largest cities in Europe, had a population of approximately 100,000 people, most of whom lived in filthy conditions. This practice often resulted in severe neurological damage and death. Women played a significant role as midwives, healers, and nurses, providing essential healthcare services. Mercury was a favorite treatment, along with letting blood and prescribing a balanced diet. Surely, there must have been some upsides to living in Tudor England, right? Well, unfortunately, you would be wrong. Even for the wealthy, there were few perks to living in this cesspool of humanity. Marriage in Tudor England was a financial transaction, a means of consolidating wealth and forging alliances rather than a union of love. Men sought to marry off their daughters to the highest bidder, while women entered into loveless unions as a means of securing their futures. Infidelity was common, and children born out of wedlock were legitimized through unofficial means, reflecting the transactional nature of marriage in Tudor society. There was little room for emotion or personal agency in a system that reduced individuals to pieces on a marriage board. While they might not have had to worry about where their next meal would come from, they still faced the grim prospect of that meal killing them. Once again, you are sadly mistaken. Soldiers in Tudor England were largely conscripted peasants, with little training, poor equipment, and no medical care. They fought in archaic formations and suffered high mortality rates. Many returned home bearing physical and psychological scars that would haunt them for the rest of their lives. Milk was rarely pasteurized, meaning that it often contained the remnants of cow and goat diseases, leading to sickness and death. Death stalked every waking moment, whether through contaminated food and water, exposure to disease, accidents, crime, violence, war, medical procedures, or the arbitrary whims of the monarchy. Tudor England stands as a stark warning, reminding us of how fragile life can be in the absence of basic rights, safety nets, and scientific understanding. In contrast, we should appreciate the hard-won progress that has brought us: modern conveniences, legal protections, and medical advancements. Each breath we take, each step we make, and each bite we eat should be a reminder of the struggles endured by those who came before us, and the importance of safeguarding the hard-won safety and rights we enjoy today. Even eggs carried a risk, since they were frequently swapped for cheaper, lower-quality ones, which could easily carry salmonella. The last piece of advice was easier given than done, since food prices fluctuated wildly due to bad harvests and government policies. For example, wheat prices quadrupled between 1540 and 1547, causing widespread starvation and desperation among the poor. However, the societal expectations and limited education available to women restricted their access to medical training. As a result, female practitioners often relied on traditional remedies and folk medicine, which, while sometimes effective, lacked the scientific basis of modern medicine. Despite these limitations, women's contributions to healthcare in Tudor England were vital and helped alleviate the suffering caused by the deficiencies of the male-dominated medical establishment. The quacks and charlatans who peddled these so-called cures preyed on the desperate, exacerbating the misery of an age when medical science was still in its infancy. There were no effective sanitation systems in place, meaning human waste, animal excrement, and decaying matter permeated the city. Add to this the smoke and soot belched out by the industries along the River Thames, and you get a toxic cocktail that killed hundreds of Londoners each year. Surviving in this cutthroat environment demanded a level of invisibility and cunning that defied conventional morality. Those who succeeded in this treacherous world did so by embracing deceit, flattery, rumor-mongering, and blackmail. A misstep could mean ruin, exile, or death. However, the rest of the country reeked of waste and sewage, and the king didn't exactly rush to change that. On his deathbed, the king lamented that his bowels had betrayed him, a regret likely echoed by every other Tudor living in filth and squalor. Medicine was more of an art form than a science, and its practitioners were more interested in extracting money from patients than helping them recover. Given the lack of scientific understanding of human anatomy, doctors resorted to applying random treatments, including leaching blood or inducing vomiting and diarrhea. This combination of pseudoscientific mumbo-jumbo and ruthless profiteering resulted in the deaths of countless innocent people. A bad toothache could prove fatal if the barber surgeon extracting the offending molar did not plunge his unwashed fingers deep into the wound after the procedure. Imagine having a tooth pulled and then getting an infection that kills you. This was the norm in Tudor England. Small wonder that many people died rather than seeking medical assistance. It is every man and woman for themselves. Here, neighbor, helping a stranger is a fool's errand. As you stare at the grisly spectacle before you, you realize that Tudor England is a world where no one is safe from sudden death. The only certainty is death itself. And make your way to the corner, where a small fire sputters, its meager warmth competed for by dozens of babies. The answer, ladies and gentlemen, is no. Even the rich had to contend with the stench of rotting waste in their homes. Their food was often adulterated with sawdust or plaster to make it look like more was present than actually was. Spoiled meat and raw milk were common sources of death, while the concept of washing one's hands before eating was seen as absurd and unnecessary. Adulteration of food and drink was common, even extending to ale, which was frequently laced with urine to preserve it. In fact, drinking water was a fate worse than death for the poor because of rampant contamination. Rivers were used for everything from cleaning clothes to disposing of waste. Thus, ale became the beverage of choice for the impoverished, despite the frequent presence of small pebbles or sawdust in it, which were ground into the teeth and throat during consumption. This practice inevitably led to many a painful death. You quickly pour some stale water from a chipped mug, thankful that your teeth have mostly fallen out already, so you do not have to worry about grinding them against the ceramic shards. Not everyone is so lucky and drinks the foul water from the same mugs, inviting infection and death. A small bowl of watery porridge awaits, the only available sustenance for many. This is breakfast in Tudor England, a regular occurrence for most of the population. Life in the mid-16th century was cheap and unpleasant. For the average person, there was little respite from the cycle of disease, poverty, hunger, cold, and death. But perhaps you are thinking, surely there must have been some things to enjoy, some moments of pleasure or beauty amid the gloom, and you would be wrong. Every hour of every day was fraught with peril. Let us now return to your morning routine. After swallowing the tasteless porridge, you emerge from your hovel to greet another glorious day in Tudor England. Outside, the sights that assault your eyes are almost as horrifying as those that assaulted your nostrils. Bodies litter the streets, some recently dead, others left to rot for weeks. You navigate the corpses, mindful of stepping in any puddles of blood or urine. Your destination is the market, a place where filth and death converge to form a heady mix of misery. The narrow stalls overflow with moldy vegetables, rotting meat and fish that has been dead for days. The whole area stinks to high heaven. You make your way through the crowds, avoiding eye contact with the beggars and the jailers, escorting prisoners to the pillory, a device that fastens a wrongdoer to a post in the town square, exposing them to public ridicule and sometimes death. If you want to see what passes for entertainment here, you need look no further than the public squares and open spaces. Here men are hanged for stealing a loaf of bread, burned for the crime of heresy, drawn and quartered for treason. Welcome to life in Tudor England. You cannot escape the dangers of the time. But what about if you are born into the higher classes? Is life better in Tudor England if you are born with a silver spoon in your mouth? The Tudors placed great emphasis on cleanliness and hygiene, though this pertained only to themselves. So you are sitting in your fine home, eating your dubious food and contemplating the gruesome scenes outside your window. If you are enjoying this video, please subscribe to my channel and leave a comment below. Your feedback is greatly appreciated. Tudor England was a world without painkillers, antibiotics, decent surgical techniques, or competent practitioners. One particularly nasty method of treatment was mercury purging, where the patient was fed corrosive mercury to induce vomiting and eliminate supposed impurities from the body. It is important to note that in Tudor England, medical practitioners were not necessarily male. For those who could afford it, physicians from France and Italy offered treatments grounded in classical texts, though their methods were often more harmful than beneficial. Now, we know what you are thinking. Surely it cannot be all doom and gloom, even for those living in abject poverty. The royal court was a pressure cooker of paranoia, manipulation, and deadly rivalries. But what if you were married into the royal family? Surely life would be great then, right? Wrong again. But what if you were a soldier in the mighty English army? Surely life would be exciting and fulfilling, right? All in all, Tudor England was a nightmarish hellscape where no one was safe, not even the king.